Oh, hello and welcome. What are we talking about with Jamie Jakes? I am him. We are here for another playoff version of Idiot versus Insider. I am always the idiot on this podcast, and I am sitting somewhat next to virtually NFL Insider James. How are you doing, buddy?
One, two,
boom. Speaking of which, you deserve a high five, a good old-fashioned Jim Harbaugh high five, because you were the moneymaker for us last week. I, of course, won the regular season matchup between the two of us. This is your first time joining us. We recommend bets for you, but we also recommend bets against each other, which is the real fun of this. And you are kicking my ass so far. This playoff season went 4-2 last week with a lot of plus money bets, I might add. So all of those plus money bets you've been making all season finally paid off for you, James. Recapping the week that we had in the wild card round, super wild card round, starting with a plus money bet from you, James. Plus 130 Texans over the Chargers. Justin Herbert, I, of course, had the Chargers. Justin Herbert laid an absolute egg. One touchdown, which was a bomb to Ladd McConkey in somewhat garbage time. They were down 3 scores when they then got a field goal blocked, extra point blocked, returned for 2 points. It was still like a 16-point game or whatever after that happened. 4 interceptions, 7.5 yards per attempt. And, of course, you take that 82-yard bomb to Ladd McConkey out of that, the outlier there. You are not having a pretty good game if you are Justin Herbert. I think where I went wrong, learning lesson for this one, divisional opponents, you can't really compare them to the rest of the NFL. So for me, I had the Chargers. They scored a bunch against the Broncos, so I was calculating them to score a bunch against the Texans because on paper, Texans have a worse defense. What I didn't really calculate in correctly is that the Broncos are a divisional opponent. Of course, they're used to playing against guys like Surtain on that secondary. Not so much with the Texans, totally different defense. So that's where I went wrong there, James. I'll give you the floor here. Your feelings. We're going to recap the rest of these super wild card games here. Overall feelings about starting the playoffs with a win over me and a win over the sports books, and your thoughts on the Texans and Chargers game here.
Yeah, I honestly chalk a lot of this up to the Palisades fire. The Chargers, most of their families and facility are pretty near that fire area.
Yeah.
Last thing you're going to be thinking about is what defense does the Houston Texans come out when your house might be burned down. So
yep.
I think a lot of that can be chalked up to that. So if you're a Chargers fan, I would take that home because from my insider sources can definitely tell you there was a lot of stress going on in that team about that. So
yeah.
Hopefully they're all safe from what I've heard as far as the team goes. So that's good at least.
Yeah, interesting that, we got the Rams talk about because they won. Rams had the home game that was affected by this. And my kind of takeaway on that too with the fires was Jim Harbaugh is going to figure out how to motivate the boys to play here. And they're going to be not so affected by these fires. And the Rams will be affected by the fires because they're moving their home game to Arizona. Flipperoo. McVay looked better than Jim in this coaching instance. So that was an interesting matchup, Mr. James. And the next one we have on our slate, I didn't watch this game at all. I was watching Shane Gillis tell jokes at American Airlines. The show was very good. The production crew that we had from the American Airlines felt like we had the C team, the B team at best, getting us into our seats on time and serving us drinks at a timely fashion. Wasn't a great performance out of American Airlines Center. Was a great performance out of Shane Gillis and Tony Hinchcliffe, who I should have seen coming because he was sidelined with Pat McAfee in Arlington for the Ohio State and Texas game. Of course, he's an Austin, Texas native now, and so he's cheering for the Horns on that side, but also he's from Ohio State. I think he went to Ohio State in college for a couple of semesters or whatever. So he was on sideline for that game. Should have seen it coming that Tony Hinchcliffe was going to be opening for Shane Gillis at American Airlines down the road from Jerry World. So anyways, didn't watch this one. Didn't need to. You know why? All you need to know, Derrick Henry is not fun to tackle in the cold. He absolutely dominated the game for the Ravens. Lamar didn't have to do much, and when he was asked to do anything, it worked. Steelers, nothing really worked for them. You had, this is one of your only losing bets of the week, the Steelers team total under. Oh, no, you had this one. You hit this one.
This one I hit. It was the Sunday morning, too, that
yep.
me over.
That's right. You hit this one. You had Steelers team total under 17.5 games, and they scored 14 points. So you were right on this one, James. What are your thoughts, Steelers, Ravens?
Yeah, I mean, watching the game, I mean, I kind of just had it on in the background, honestly. I was watching Alabama basketball instead, take down Texas A&M, so Roll Tide. But,
of course, yeah, Roll Tide, big basketball school now.
A huge basketball school, also a golf school. Shout out to the Booster Club at Alabama for golf. Yeah, I mean, Russell Wilson did what I thought he would do, and which was make poor decisions. George Pickens, once again, good one-on-one ball, but if he's not getting it, he's throwing a tantrum. So another Steelers wide receiver becoming a diva. What a shock. I kind of wish I'd bet no touchdown in the first half for the Steelers, though. That would have been a hell of a hit to also take the home, but very happy with that win. And that was probably the one that I should have put my golden ball on, but I didn't.
Yep. We by the way, golden ball, we'll get to it. Double, it's like our best bet of the week. So once we get into it, that's our 2-unit bet of the week, which I missed on this week. So glad you mentioned it.
Me too.
Broncos at Bills was our next game. We were both wrong on this one, right? We both had the Broncos. I think we just bet on the wrong rookie quarterback, which I guess in hindsight, we probably should have bet on Jaden Daniels and bet against Bo Nix as the rookie quarterbacks to succeed and fail in the wild card round of the playoffs. We talked earlier this season about it's a good idea to kind of fade these elite defenses later in the season because those top 3 defenses in the playoffs, whether it's, I don't know, maybe fatigue or they're just playing good offenses, but they're just not quite as dominant as they are like mid and early season. Maybe another testament to like just offenses figuring things out as the season goes on, but something to always remember, not always the best thing to rely on that elite defense late in the season and definitely in the postseason. James, is kind of my takeaway and how I messed this one up. What were your thoughts on this one?
I'm still not upset with the bet. I think momentum shifted twice in a very odd way. I mean, you had that stolen possession, which I semi-predicted with Sean Payton, right, running the fake punt, but then they don't get any points out of that, so that was bad. And then that Bills touchdown, which I still do not understand how he got possession before his right ankle went out of bounds on that.
I thought it was touchdown.
My argument was he did not have possession before his right ankle touched out of bounds. I think the right ankle touched out of bounds. He catches it, and then both feet are up. But at that point, if you've gone out of bounds, you can't catch the ball. So that is my opinion on that one. But I think after that 4th down touchdown, I knew that game was over, and there was no way we were covering. I think if that call had been reviewed correctly, maybe the Broncos cover 8.5, but Bills look pretty good. But we'll see how much we factor that game into our picks this week.
We will see some foreshadowing, James. Packers, Eagles, finishing up here the slate from last week. Jalen was rusty in the first half. I kind of press you on that. This was the one I was thinking that we were talking about earlier. Only 10 points in the first half. You had over 14 for the Eagles was your official pick on this one. This was, I think, the only bet I got right this week. I had Eagles minus 4.5, and that was the right side. Yeah. To be fair to me, Packers stink. They do limp into the playoffs, which we'll talk about a little bit more in the divisional round slate, and it showed. They weren't ready to play the Eagles in this game whatsoever. They kind of get rolled. Wasn't really a game from jump. Jalen did look rusty in the first half. I think a lot of people turned the game off in the second half and missed Jalen kind of bouncing back to form coming off of his, I think, 3-week hiatus with his concussion. So pretty good second half performance for the Eagles. And of course, say 2K all day seals this one for the Philadelphia Eagles. Packers are frauds. What do you got on this one, James?
Yeah, I mean, I did bet Eagles -1 for the second half. So that one did hit at least. So that was nice. Yeah, I mean, I was so excited after that first kickoff. I was like, for sure they're getting over 14.5 points. And
the fumble on the opening kickoff.
Yeah, the fumble on the opening kick. I was like, in the bag. and
Yeah.
somehow they could only put up a field goal for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jalen looked great in the second half, though. I won my live bet on that at least, and I'll take that. And that probably should be a Scott Van Pelt bad beat to have over 13.5 in the first play of the game is a freaking fumble on a kickoff, and you still don't hit it.
Yeah, that's crazy. Moving on to the Commanders at the Buccaneers. James did it again. So you nailed this one, all right? And I've been kind of picking on you. I would still say most situations you're better off taking the Commanders +3. You decide you're like, hey, it's a coin flip. I'm not going to factor in home field as much as maybe most people are, and I'm going to take the Commanders +155. And you hit it, +155 bet. We faded the wrong rookie quarterback, like I said. And ironically, Baker was the one to kind of bumble this one in the end. At least if you ask him, the fumble in his own area towards the end of the game was his fault, which I would say, like, still a reason that maybe you bet Commanders +3 instead of taking the 155. Works out for you here in the long run. I still don't love it, but I think in games like this, that coin flip +155 is a really, really good option. So to be fair to you, James, I think you nailed this one. I, of course, had my sweet, sweet boy Baker Mayfield, and he let me down. But that's okay. That's going to happen in sports gambling every once in a while. What were your thoughts on this one?
Oh, great performance by Washington. Their defense stepped up when they needed to.
Yep.
Bobby Wagner looking like the vet that he is. So good pickup by them getting him. But yeah, I mean, this game went how I thought it was. I thought it was just going to be back and forth, and whoever has the ball last wins it, which ended up being the situation.
Yep. Moving on to the last game of the slate, Vikings at Rams, and James does it again, +110 on the Rams. I, of course, had the Vikings as my best bet, my golden ball of the week. You were right. I listened back to it while I was getting ready for this, and you were like, coming off that Detroit game, I feel like the Minnesota team knows they've been exposed. And I think a lot of the fans, not the social media fans, like the actual fans of the Minnesota Vikings, were kind of like, yeah, I think we got exposed against the Lions. We're going to have a tough time going into the playoffs with that kind of bad defeat taste in our mouth. And they looked demoralized from the very beginning. And it is a Detroit flu game. I was fading the Detroit flu because they had the extra day of rest. It was a Monday night game. Didn't matter because half the Detroit flu is showing the other team how to beat the opponent. Okay, so schematically, I think the Lions showed how to take out the Vikings offense, and the Rams pretty much did that to an absolute T. So despite all of the statistics and everything that I looked into, didn't matter. More of a momentum play here. But I will say, despite me losing this bet, was an absolute pleasure to watch those Minnesota Vikings get absolutely fucking slaughtered on Monday night. I thought the Lions were going to see them in 2 weeks. We're not. Not now. The Commanders, we would have saw them in 2 weeks anyway, but we're not seeing you in 3 weeks either because the Minnesota Vikings are total frauds, and they showed their fraudulent ways on Monday night in front of the world to see. And Vikings fans are still chiming up in my comment section saying about next year. Well, we'll worry about next year once we get there. I'm more worried about this year because the Detroit Lions are still playing. So suck it, Vikings fans. You guys are a horrible fan base, and you guys suck. And J.J. McCarthy's too skinny to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. He'll never pan out. My name's Jamie Jakes. Thank you. James, what are your thoughts on this one? You won this bet.
Soaking wet, 180-pound J.J. McCarthy is coming back next year, so watch out.
Oh, boy. I'm shaking in my boots.
Yeah. I mean, thought I was on the dot with Sam Darnold. He's had a Joshua Dobbs-like fall here at the end of the season. Second they get exposed, I feel bad for him because that's like a $30 million like swing that he just took in the last 2 weeks. Like that.
Yeah, I think maybe we talked that, and I think somebody else said they felt bad for Sam Darnold. I don't. I'm going to say that I don't feel bad for Sam Darnold whatsoever. He's going to make $35 million next year, probably in for the Raiders, if I had to guess.
Oh God, I hope one thing that has remained true throughout my life, which always surprised me, is how bad NFL GMs are at picking players. And if somebody gives Sam Darnold that much money, I also have a charity fund, and I'll actually put it towards, helping homeless people if you would rather have that, because you want to burn money, just burn money. My God. Yeah. I mean, I was happy I turned that game off at halftime and went and played Scrabble with the wife. I mean, that was that was an easy W.
Yep. We were live, or else we would have turned it off too, or done something else with our lives. We were live. We were committed to it, and we stuck with it.
I hopped in there and made a comment or two, I think.
You sure did. I appreciate you. Moving on to this upcoming week's slate, and I feel a lot better about this slate, James. I'm trying to make my comeback against you. We're going to go week by week, okay, with the tiebreaker being the Super Bowl week. So if we're 2-2 week by week going into the Super Bowl, then the Super Bowl picks will be who determines is the champion of the playoffs, okay?
Do we got to start throwing in 2 bets a game when it's just the AFC, NFC championships? Or?
You can. I almost, yeah, so that's a good point. So force bet on every single game, but you can make multiple bets on a single game if you really want to. I almost did for the Ravens game. I decided not to. Spoiler alert, but we're going to get into it here, and we're going to start with Saturday afternoon. Texans at Chiefs. The Chiefs are 8.5-point favorites. The over-under is very low, set to 41.5. We've got at Kansas City a high of 25 on Saturday. Winds of up to 20 miles per hour. What do you got on this one, James?
Yeah, well, I don't like the winds part because my bet involves that. But
it was like 10 to 20 when I checked. So
you know what? Kansas, Missouri, pretty close to Texas weather. How we'll be predicted to have one thing one day, and then it turns out to be a whole 10-degree difference anyway. So here's my thought process here, right? I think we've talked about Kansas City. We think they're somewhat of a fraud, right?
Mm-hmm.
We like Houston. Houston was great last week, but I don't think they're going to be that great against the Kansas City team that's had, an extra week of rest. So I looked at every single possibility here. I looked at prop bets. I looked at alternate lines. I looked at everything. There's one bet that I found that I liked and wanted to take, and it is for the game in total to have over 3.5 field goals. For 4 field goals to be made in this game at plus 100. I hope Harrison Butker is in his kitchen cooking up some good kicks, but
someone's cooking for him.
I didn't like the under. I didn't like the over. I didn't like the spread. I didn't like the alternate spread. I didn't even like anytime touchdown scorers. I swear to God, I went through every 138 prop bets for this game and didn't like anything except this one. So I'm just going to let America know this is by far my least favorite pick of the week. And if we have the opposite of a golden ball where I can bet half a unit, I want to put it on this one.
A poopy ball, a doo-doo ball,
a cement ball, because you just hand it off and hope it doesn't.
So over 3.5 field goals made, right?
Yeah. So four field goals need to get made in this game.
And who's the kicker for the Fairbairn? Right, he's pretty good.
Yep.
Okay. So more of a.
These kickers are good. They have good kickers on both sides, and
stalling.
I'm just kind of betting on the offenses to get stalled out and for those kicks to go.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it was the only bet that made sense to me when I looked at it.
Yeah, both teams kind of. Off the top of my head, I feel like both teams struggle. Not looking at the stats, running the ball in the gold zone. So yeah, I kind of like it, James. Obviously, you might have a free roll with the Bigfoot from Butker. Might be able to at the end of the half try and kick a 60-yard one through in the wind and the coldness. So I don't terribly hate that bet. I do have a prop on this one as well, and it's more like narrative based than anything, because I think these props, sports books are terrified to put out these props, but they put them out for the playoffs and they put them out early for the Super Bowl, and that's really where smarty pants like us can start picking them away. And they put heavier VIGs on them, like 114 instead of 110, but I don't care. Narrative that this Chiefs team is propped up by a good defense like they were last season. I think that's the kind of narrative going into this game. That's not the case. Chiefs defense stinks. They're like we already said, they're frauds. Chiefs are 18th in EPA per pass, specifically on defense. So they really struggle to stop the pass. You know who's not struggling right now? You know who's so hot right now?
Who's so hot right now?
Nico freaking Collins. He's so hot right now. 121 yards against the Chargers, who have a good pass defense, better pass defense than the Chiefs last week. These teams Did play recently, and Nico Collins only had 60 yards receiving. But the big difference in that game is Tank Dell had 98 yards receiving. And ever since he went down, it has been the Nico Collins show. His receiving prop currently is set to 82.5 yards. I expect Texans to be playing from behind because I'm not betting on the Texans plus 8.5. I think this game's going to be like an 8.5, like 2-score game. So I expect the Texans to really air the ball out a lot. And they did against the Chargers when the game was close. They didn't start running the ball with Mixon until very, very late in the game is when he got most of his yards and most of his opportunities. So I'm going to take Nico Collins over 82.5 receiving yards against the fraudulent Chiefs secondary, James.
I like it.
Me too. Saturday night, going on to the Commanders at the Detroit Lions. The Lions got a week off, getting healthier than ever. Healthier since probably the Cowboys game when Aiden Hutchinson went down. He went down in the second quarter, by the way. Mm-hmm. Cowboys still were unable to score a touchdown that game. Anyways, even when the garbage guys came in, that's with Dak Prescott too. That's not Cooper Rush, okay? Anyways, this game will be at Detroit. Over-under set to 55.5, pretty high for these teams. Obviously, you don't have to worry about weather, despite the Commanders practicing outside this week. I did see that. Interesting decision made there from the Commanders front office. What do you got on this one, James?
Yeah, I really want to bet the Detroit spread, but I do think it's going to go down a little bit more before kickoff. Yeah, bet your favorites late, right? Bet your underdogs early.
Yeah,
America loves an underdog, so I'm hoping this line for the Lions can get down to 8 or 8.5. I would love that. I would grab that, but that's not available. So I had to look at a couple things here. Number one thing that I've circled for this, and I keep coming back to it: Washington played late on Sunday. They played late in the night. Now they've got a Saturday game in Detroit. They're traveling as well. I just don't see how this team. I think their emotional high as well from winning that game
with a rookie quarterback, right?
How well did you actually prepare for this week? So I found a juicy one at plus 160. The Detroit Lions to score over 7.5 points in the first quarter at plus 160. Yep. I think they're going to come out with a home run ball first play of the game. That's the most Dan Campbell thing I could think of is Penei Sewell somehow has a reverse flea flicker. Some crazy shit. And to Jameson Williams, Penei Sewell to Jameson Williams throw for immediate touchdown. And then they get the ball back immediately. I think this defense is going to absolutely crush the Commanders early. And then I think they'll start getting into more of a run fit later on in the game. So I really like that I'm getting plus 160 on that for Detroit to just score a touchdown and at least a field goal, maybe even a touchdown and a 2-point conversion because Dan Campbell's crazy. You don't know.
Yeah,
I'm taking it.
Yeah, I don't mind it at all, James. In the first quarter, the only reason I hate first quarter bets is because you're dependent on the coin flip. So an interesting mechanic here is you can wait for the coin flip, and if you're fast enough, got to be fast. If you're fast enough, there'll be beat reporters that will report the coin flip in live time. Mm-hmm. So you have the opportunity as a bettor, if you're betting the first quarter thing like this, to see the result of that coin flip. And if the Lions end up receiving that, hit it right away. And then if they lose the coin flip, you can either no bet it or wait for that line to adjust before kickoff, which it does. It does happen. So a tasty little treat there for you if you are betting the Lions to score over, a touchdown in the first half.
Be on the phone with your buddy who's in the stadium.
Exactly.
That's a classic.
Yep, that is a classic, and I'm sure I've got boots on the ground there. So maybe I break that news. Anyways, here's what I got, and I agree with a lot of things that you said, James. I do think this spread is pretty accurate. I think it's a two score win for the Lions at home. I do expect the Lions to dominate. I think, like you said, they are going to, over the course of the game, run the ball a lot, burn the clock. Got David Montgomery back, and I think they're going to be pretty successful running the ball. The Commanders are one of the worst rush defenses in the league. According to a lot of stats, metrics, they're slightly closer to average than the rest of the NFL, but I still think the Lions are going to be able to dominate them on the run with David Montgomery coming back. Tough to bet the props for for the Lions backfield, though, because you don't know who's going to get how many opportunities with Gibbs and David Montgomery coming off of the injury, and Gibbs looking incredible when David was on the sideline with that injury of the knee that took 2 doctors to tell him you're getting surgery. Third doctor might have been me. I don't know. Said, I think you're good, David. Why don't you get out there and play in the divisional round? Anyways, I don't want to bet the Lions at 9.5. It seems too wide. Narrative-wise, I think the Lions defense stinks narrative because they're too banged up, has kind of seeped through the entire football fan base. I was talking to somebody yesterday about how the Lions defense, they stink or whatever, they're overrated. I'm just like, let me tell you a few things. So there's only one team in the NFL who have held 4 different opponents this season to 0 touchdowns in an entire NFL football game. Any guess who that is, James?
I think they're coached by a former player who played tight end. Probably starts with kind of like a 3-letter name, like Dan.
Yep. I think you're on the right track here.
Yeah, I think that might be the Detroit Lions.
Detroit Lions. And off the top of my head, it's Vikings, Cowboys, Jags, Colts, I think are those 3 teams that they held them to 0 touchdowns. But these Lions are too banged up, James. They're too banged up, right, to really make a run here on the defensive side of things. No one talks about the Lions offense that has 0 injuries.
Don't listen to the rat poison, Jamie.
That's just rat poison, baby. All right. And guess what? Hutchinson went down in that first game against the Cowboys where they held the team to 0 touchdowns. They picked up Zadarius Smith since then. He's pretty good. He's not as good as Aiden Hutchinson. For sure, he's not as good as Aiden Hutchinson. But he's good enough to produce pressure. And we'll talk about kind of how much pressure they've been able to produce late in the season now that Anzalone's back. But I think they have the Lions have the best defensive secondary that's still alive in the playoffs, right? They got Brian Branch, Kirby Joseph as safeties, the best safety duo in the NFL. I don't think anybody could even come close to arguing that. Kirby Joseph didn't make the Pro Bowl, but he's first team All-Pro. So that's pretty good. Terry and Arnold, Robertson, their 2 best corners, healthy for this game. Carlton Davis, the only one that really matters in the secondary, that'll be out for this one. And Arnold, by the way, coming off that foot injury in week 18, coming off that rest, I just saw a clip of him moving. He looks fine, okay? Rakestraw coming off of the 2nd-round pick for the Lions. Rakestraw coming off of his IR stint. He's healthy for this one. And Anzalone adds to the secondary from a play-calling standpoint and just a coverage standpoint. Like, he was all over the field breaking up passes, especially to the tight ends in the game against the Vikings where they held the Vikings to 0 touchdowns in 4 quarters. Okay? Lions 7th in EPA per play on defense throughout the whole season. That's including all the games that they were super banged up. They are better defending the pass, however. 4th best in EPA per pass defense are the Lions. And then we're going to get into number 1 wide receiver props again here, James. All right, going back to the well. Terry McLaurin, his prop 68.5 yards receiving. Lions, Amik Robertson just held Justin Jefferson to 54 yards, which really should have been under 40 because one of those plays was a 20-yard dart to Jefferson that was a clear delay of game that we've already talked about on this podcast. Washington, pass offense better statistically than the Vikings, but Jaden Daniels actually worse under pressure compared to Sam Darnold, which the narrative, Sam Darnold under pressure, he sucks, right? Jaden worse statistically throughout the season when under pressure. There was a team that led the NFL. All 32 teams played in week 18, right, James? As far as I can remember?
That is correct.
Well, one of them led the league in pressure rate. Any guess who that was in week 18, James?
I think they're a team in the Midwest that has a feline mascot.
Yep.
Could it be the Detroit Lions?
It's not the Bengals. I'll tell you that much, James. Yeah. Number 1 in pressure rate last week. Midfield, middle of the pack in time to pressure, though. So that's just coverage, baby. That's just coverage. You know, give me Scary Terry under 68.5 receiving yards. Easy peasy lemon squeezy on that one. Moving on to Sunday afternoon. The Rams at Philadelphia. Very low, over under 43.5. And I think that's because it's going to be a little warm and a lot of rainy is what we're predicted to see here in this game so far. What do you got on this one, James?
Interesting. I had not heard about the rain.
It's a pretty high percentage at kick. It's like 40%. So we should see rain at some point during this game.
Interesting. Well, I think this one's pretty simple on my end. Last week, the Eagles, admittedly, Jalen Hurts played bad in the first half, right?
Yep.
They still put up 22 points.
Yeah.
The over-under for their team total is 26.5 against the Rams team that just had to play a home game away, has to fly across the country, and has one less day, probably 2 less days of practice with having to travel back and forth from Arizona.
Yep.
Philadelphia Eagles team total 26.5. I'm taking the over, and the over is plus 100.
Nice.
You're telling me that they only have to score 5 more points than they did last week with a better team against a team with less rest? Good luck.
Yeah. And I would say Rams definitely statistically a worse defense than the Packers, who the Philadelphia Eagles faced last week, James. So I like that. I like where you're headed, but I want to bet against the Rams here, James. That's why I got away from the Philadelphia team total. Stafford really struggles in the rain. He was really, really bad. Dome player his whole career with Detroit. LA, obviously in a outdoor indoor stadium. Usually don't have to worry about the rain too much there. He really, really struggled this season when he did. I think he had 2 rain games and he just couldn't move the ball whatsoever. So 6-point game, right, James? Home Philadelphia. I'd give Philly, especially with the 24-hour flight that it's going to take the Rams to get there. I'd give Philly a full 3-point favorite, home field advantage for this game. Would you tend to agree?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So on neutral,
you might get called some nasty words.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You might get called some nasty words from a guy who works for a company that sells virtual reality products to make you less racist.
Already fired.
He's already fired.
He's already been fired.
Yeah. He's like the most politically correct business that he works for in all of Philadelphia. And he's calling a nice lady a DC and not a defensive coordinator in the stands. Yeah, not a good look for Philadelphia. Funny when Detroit fans go too far, there's no video of it. But when Eagles fans go too far, there's clear 4K video of it, recorded from the boyfriend's point of view, who didn't do shit, I might add. Anyways.
Yeah, I don't. If somebody said that to my wife, I don't think they'd be. What is this phrase that most people use? They'd be drinking through a straw for the rest of their life.
Yeah, I think there'd be video of the altercation, and I wouldn't be the one recording it.
No. You get them in like a full lock, and you're just taking them face down, stare by stare.
Yeah, it's not gonna end well for that old man. Anyways, getting back to this game, James. So on a neutral site, you're saying the Eagles are only 3 points better. I think that's totally incorrect. Okay. We're looking at points per game, 20th versus 7th, point differential, 17th versus 2nd best, average margin of victory, 30th versus 10th, turnover differential, 10th versus 6th best team in the NFL, all in the favor of the Philadelphia Eagles. Rams limp into the playoffs and look good against the Vikings. I think that's a Vikings thing, James. And I think that's a Detroit flu thing, James. The Lions did not give the blueprint to the Rams on how to beat these yet. Okay. Got to wait till next week to see that one. Okay. EPA per play on offense, 6th best versus 14th. EPA per play on defense, 20th versus 26th. The Rams are one of the worst defenses in the NFL. Their offense is statistically average. Of course, they had injuries early in the season, so you give them a little bit of grace there. But Kyron Williams has been healthy all season. It hasn't been, burning up the stats outside of, touches per game. Mm-hmm. Vikings are frauds. I think the Rams are frauds too. They limp into the playoffs. The line is low because Jaden didn't look good in the first half and everybody turned the TV off, right, James? The game was over.
Yeah.
Much better in the second half. Coming off the concussion totally makes sense. So I'm on board with you. The Eagles offense looks better this week than they do last week for a lot of different reasons. But give me the Eagles. Give me them at -6.
Wow.
I think we're going to see an ass whooping from the Rams. I think they're going to get exposed on this one.
Wow.
Moving on to the last game of the slate, Sunday night. Ravens at Buffalo. Bills catching 1.5. Underdogs at home here. 51.5 points. Under 20 degrees at kick. Chance of snow in this one, James.
Yeah, that 51.5 is wild, especially considering how much the Ravens will just chew out the clock once they get the lead. That kind of gives away who I'm picking here. But give me the Ravens. -120. This team should be like -180. Bills are not good. I don't care if they're at home. I don't care if it's snowing. I don't care if this one's played on Neptune. Give me Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. Zay Flowers is back. See you later.
Okay. Well, you didn't. I mean, you alluded to the man, an Alabama lad, but you didn't bring him up by name. I wonder why that is. Derrick Henry.
I said Derrick Henry.
Did you? Okay.
I will always speak Derrick Henry.
I missed it. You specifically saying is
Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, and Zay Flowers back.
Okay,
those are my three. That's the trident of which I've chosen this game.
Okay, thank goodness, James. Derrick Henry in the cold, not fun to tackle. Worked for him last week against the Steelers, and after the first quarter, didn't seem like the Steelers. I watched the game back. Didn't seem like the Steelers were very motivated to tackle anybody on that team in the cold. I'll say that. Okay. Derrick Henry faced the Buffalo Bills this season in a game they ended up winning 35-10, ran for 199 yards against the Bills in a much warmer September game, and that was at Baltimore. Okay. But anyways, Derrick Henry, rush prop. I would call it a laughable 95.5 yards. Some defenses are built too small to handle Derrick Henry, and we've already seen the Bills are built too small to stop Derrick Henry. They did a good job. I think they're built to stop fast running backs. That's why they played well, at least against the run against Detroit. Zay Flowers is back, like you said, so he's going to open up the secondary, going to open up the box for Derrick Henry, I think, because they're really going to have to account for him and Lamar Jackson playing like an MVP. I almost was like, give me a parlay on Henry over and the Ravens to cover. But I'm just like, this Henry bet over 95.5 yards when he just went off last week in the cold against the Steelers. He went off against the Bills with the same roster essentially. So over 95.5 seems easy peasy, lemon squeezy to me, James.
Yeah.
And that brings us to our golden ball worth 2.
Wait a minute, Jamie.
What?
I think I hear a fifth bet coming from somewhere.
Oh my gosh.
I think I have another bet that I want to take here.
Oh,
it's
geez.
called the Chockapalooza teaser.
Okay.
Teaser on every favorite this week to give us Chiefs -2. Lions -3, Eagles just a win, and the Ravens +5. And guess what? That's also +225 if you bet that teaser at 6.
Wow. Wow, James. So every favorite wins.
Tease it up on that chalk, baby. Tease it up. Chiefs -2. That's going to hit. Lions -3. That'll hit in an instant. The Eagles just have to win their game, and then the Ravens just don't have to lose by more than 4.5 points. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, you're teasing through 0 there, and you're teasing 2-0 there. So
I don't care. I like chalk. I like chalk. You've seen me at the gym. I chalk it up all the time. It's chalk city. This round is going to be nothing but favorites. This week sucks if you're a person at home betting this, and I want to take advantage of it. Tease the favorites. They're all going to win.
Okay.
Tease them. Parlay them. Whatever you got to do.
I can't wait for Harrison Butker to kick through a game-winning field goal to win by 1 point to blow your whole teaser up.
Yeah, game one is the one that I'm actually the most nervous about.
Yep.
So we might throw some hedges in there. We'll see how
Yep.
it goes at halftime.
All right. So what's your golden ball, James?
Golden ball is the Ravens. Ravens are going to
Okay.
win the game. I would bet up to like minus 160 on the Ravens, to be honest. So golden ball is going to the Ravens for sure.
Yep, I'm with you. Golden ball, Derrick Henry over 95.5 yards. So we are simpatico on that. I feel really good about this slate, James. I think I've learned from my past discretions in the first week of the playoff Super Wild Card weekend, and I think I'm going to bounce back here. I think I really like your picks as well. Really went to the bottom of the barrel on some of those. How are you feeling going into this? Trying to get your first title.
I went through the bottom of the barrel, came back around, and then found just like a drop.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to dig deep on some of these. I didn't like a lot of these lines. I'm not going to lie. It's I think it's a very chalky weekend, which is why that teaser comes up.
Yeah.
You could also parlay it if you want at home, since it's all negative money lines. Not worth doing the strategy, in my opinion. But yeah, it's I think it's going to be a unfortunately boring weekend. If that's, I don't want to unhype this weekend for people, but last week, fantastic slate. This week, I think, maybe, take your melatonin a little early, take a nap during one of these games, because I think it's going to be some good blowouts.
Yeah. Well, the Sunday night game starts early, so at least there's that. I think it starts at like 5:30 Central or something like that.
That way everybody can rest up for the national championship on Monday.
Yep. Or Monday Night Raw, which I think I'm going to in American Airlines. Yeah.
Oh, that's in American Airlines. Oh shit.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Tickets are cheap. Wonder why?
Good thing I am not going to Hero to watch the national championship, because that was on my short list of bars to go to, and that would be atrocious to go to when there's a
shit show.
Yeah.
All right, James, thanks for joining us. Thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe. Follow along with us. If you followed my bets last week, because I was hot in the regular season, I apologize. But if you followed my bets in the regular season, you're still doing all right. We'll see who's the hot hand. I don't know who I would trail this week, James. You or I. You're taking the lead on this one. I don't know. I think we both get a winning week this week. Thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe. We'll see you next time.